We look now at the latest from Arusha in Tanzania, where the African Development Bank is hosting their annual meeting. Godfrey Mutizwa spoke to Uledi Mussa, who's Deputy Permanent Secretary of the EAC Ministry, and Nkosana Moyo, who is Executive Chairman of Mining at the Mandela Institute of Studies.
The EAC is working in the sense that since its inception in 2000 and now 2012, we're almost a decade old. Trade, intra-regional trade, has more or less increased fourfold, from 8.8 billion US dollars in 2000 to 37 US dollars billion in 2010. So there is a success in terms of trade, but we think that we could do more.
What could you do more?
We could do more by focusing our programs and projects in improving infrastructure like railways, roads, and telecommunications, so that we reduce the cost of doing business, but also by enhancing agricultural productivity as well as manufacturing.
Yeah, dare I say, and improving access across borders as well, because one of the issues that we picked up was that across the region, even if you talk Southern Africa, trying to cross those borders is extremely difficult.
Yeah, you are quite right. In my view, for example, Tanzania is supposed to be the hub for transport and transportation, because it is bordering the sea, but also it borders 8 countries. So if we could improve the central railway corridor and the northern railway corridor for Kenya, then we should be able to service the Eastern Central Africa.
Indeed. But Mr. Moyo, you've been looking at this. Now, of course, you have worked with the bank, and you've also worked in Southern Africa as a Minister of Trade and Industry in Zimbabwe, for instance. But you have been looking at this, and your view is that these regional economic strategies that we have currently now will have challenges and may not succeed unless we begin to think for ourselves.
Yeah. My view is that the clarity of the dividend, if you like, of coming together of a group of countries needs to be clear right from the beginning.
Right.
And that there is an element, there is a delicate mix between freedom of the market and some active, deliberate management of the structure of that market, especially in the context of a regional market.
Right.
Firstly, integration is important because it actually creates a bigger market. Secondly, however, if you're not careful, the distribution of the benefits will not be clear to all members. And when the distribution of benefits is not clear to some members, those members who it's not clear to become a blockage to the system.
So are you saying for East Africa, those conditions have not been met and these need to be looked
at?
No,
I do not know for a fact,
sure.
But my observation in SADC, for instance, I don't think there is a clarity in almost like what I would call allocation of sectors in terms of responsibility. What do I mean by this? If you've got a number of countries, let's say 5 countries, and you've got a typical type of good, like motor vehicles, if you allow each one of the members of that community to have an assembly plant of vehicles in each of their territories, you're killing tradability. You're fragmenting the market. You're making the market for each one of the assembly plants much smaller than if you said, you country X will be responsible for the whole market of our joint countries, and we give you the responsibility of assembling cars for the whole. So the clarity then is, I'm going to create purchasing power in country X as they manufacture or assemble vehicles.
Sure.
And through those, firstly, they will need to sell them to somebody. And secondly, as they sell them, they will create purchasing power, which allows them in reverse to buy goods and services from the other members of the community.
Mr. Wasa, politically, are we able to make those delineations? Are we able to say Tanzania is going to make cars and you, the other car guys, you're going to make tractors?
I think Professor Moyo's contention is only true if we are talking about strategic industries.
Right.
Yeah. For strategic industries, that is possible. For other industries which are essentially private sector driven, that one is not possible.
You want to leave the market to work on its own?
We leave the market to work on its own, but we also create a conducive environment for the private sector to choose where they think they can reap the benefits in terms of returns.
Now, Professor Moyo also makes another intervention.
Can I just jump in? Absolutely. So again, let's take the 5 countries in East Africa. Burundi, Rwanda, Uganda, Tanzania, and Kenya. If I'm an investor and I come to this region and you say to me, and let's say my inclination for whatever reason was to come and invest in Kenya, and that sector that is my industry, you've decided in the region that I can only go and invest in Uganda. Let's just take that example. As long as I'm assured that by manufacturing in Uganda, I've got the whole of the 5 countries as a market, I can assure you I'm going to do it, private sector-wise. I will not necessarily go, if I'm assured of access to the market, I'll do it. But what you will do automatically with the issue I'm arguing is that you are making clear to Uganda that if it doesn't play ball, it's going to lose because you're not going to facilitate for this to happen.
So we are not just leaving the market in its own, but we are also uplifting the less developed partner states in the EAC. We have already, we are in the process of having a development fund. That development fund will cater for special needs of the EAC partner states. But also we are promoting this region in complementarity, in the sense that if Tanzania can do something much better, then let Tanzania do it. If
but
Kenya
that's fine.
can do it
I've got no
much
argument with
better,
that. That's fine. But let's come to the development fund. One of the challenges, and we've seen it in Europe, a development resource which is at public sector level typically should not be used, in my own opinion, for consumables or the sort of things that could be done by the private sector. The main challenge for integrated countries is the equivalency, if you like, or comparability of infrastructure. And therefore, a development fund, primarily, in my own opinion, should go to address uplifting, to create an infrastructure which almost like makes an investor indifferent. So electricity, water, road transportation, telecoms. Once you do that, I would say when you lift it into private sector type operations, my own humble opinion is that I would not take the typical bookish economist approach which says as long as the values, the benefits created at a gross level are visible. I don't care about the micro level. I would say for as long as a nation state exists with individual voters where the accountability is not regional but within a nation state, you have to take care of that.
I wanted to challenge you on that. I wanted to challenge you on that because what he is suggesting is that we should perhaps, are you suggesting, let me put it to you rather than me try and paraphrase what you say, are you suggesting therefore that we need to forego the examples that we have seen? For example, the EAC has been built along the lines of the European Union. Are you saying we should not learn from these guys and we should think out of the box, if you like, and reinvent the wheel, so to speak?
Not at all. You see, if you are this explicit about how you structure your market and how you divide literally the benefits right up front and explicitly, what happens is that you eliminate the so-called non-tariff barriers. Even in Europe, there is non-tariff barriers. Because of this, and I will show you another problem why the inefficiency of the market develops. Two fundamental reasons. At state level, lack of explicit articulation of how the dividends are shared out. Secondly, petty, let's call it petty because it's not state level. You know, the inefficiencies that are then created in moving goods and people between the two states is normally rent seeking by lower levels of people. The capacity and commitment of the state to supervise and make sure that the lower level nonsense does not take place, that commitment is lacking because the state itself is not clear about how the benefits flow.
I don't think that one is true. You know why? The reason is that we are not talking about the inward-looking approach of regional integration, which apparently Professor Moyo is alluding to. The current approach is that our region is outward-looking, and therefore whatever is produced for the regional market as well as for the external market. And therefore, the bottom line is to improve our competitiveness as a region, okay? And to compete globally.
So let me ask a question. In that case, if it's so logical, so clear, why is it not working perfectly?
No. For us, it is working, at least for the moment.
Can I answer that question? I think it's because there's a lot of political egg walking that needs to be done, and it's going to take a long
those
time.
challenges, I think we are moving the right direction.
There are going to be many ways of reaching Rome, gentlemen.
Okay,
Thanks very
correct.
much indeed
Thank
for
you.
joining us here at
Pleasure.
CNBC Africa. And of course, as I said, shared it. Certainly, it's going to take a while. It's going to take many different approaches to try and make sure that regional integration does work in Africa. When it does, perhaps we can take that example and pan it to the rest of Africa.